NBA rules will force unheralded guard to play massive minutes for the Rockets. The injury that changed everything. THVCE Houston Rockets were supposed to enter the 2025-26 season as one of the NBA's feel-good stories. A once proud franchise that had floundered in the lottery 4 years had finally rebuilt on the back of smart drafting, bold trades, and an aggressive front office. They had their young core, Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, and Cam Whitmore, and then went all in this summer by acquiring Kevin Durant, pairing him with Clint Capela in a sign-and-trade maneuver that gave them the rim protection and championship pedigree they craved. Suddenly, Houston wasn't just a plucky young team anymore. They were dangerous. They were talked about as a legitimate contender in the West. But all of those carefully laid plans were built on one stabilizing figure, Fred VanVleet. The former Raptors star was brought in last season not only for his shooting and playmaking, but for his leadership. He was supposed to be the adult in the room, a champion who had been through playoff wars, someone to steady the team's half-court offense, call out defensive coverage, and bring professionalism to a locker room filled with precocious talent. And now, before the season even tipped off, VanVleet is gone, felled by a devastating ACL injury that could sideline him for the year. The Rockets' vision of balance collapsed overnight. A rulebook nightmare. In most situations, a team could respond quickly, sign a veteran off the street, use an injury exception, or swing a small trade. But the Rockets are boxed in by the NBA's labyrinthine rules. Because of their off-season moves, Houston is hard-capped at the first apron, around $178 million. That means they cannot exceed this limit to sign anyone. They cannot use mid-level or biannual exceptions. They cannot aggregate salaries in a trade until after the 15th of December, the date when most newly signed or traded players become eligible again. In short, the Rockets are frozen. Yes, names like Russell Westbrook, Dennis Smith Jr., or even G-League guards are still floating in free agency, but Houston literally cannot add them without cutting or trading someone else. And the players they'd actually consider moving, Capela, Whitmore, even role players like Dylan Brooks, are locked until December. This leaves them with one unavoidable truth: they must ride with Aaron Holiday. Aaron Holiday, the forgotten Holiday brother. When you hear the name Holiday in NBA circles, your mind goes immediately to Drew, a two-time All-Star, former All-Defensive Team mainstay, and the kind of player who raises championship ceilings. Justin Holiday carved out his own respectable career as a 3-and-D swingman. Aaron, he's always been the other Holiday. Drafted 23rd overall in 2018 by the Indiana Pacers, Aaron entered the league with some buzz as a shot creator out of UCLA. In spurts, he showed promise, a quick first step, pull-up range, and the kind of tenacity on defense that echoed his brother Drew. But consistency was always the issue. Coaches trusted him in short bursts but rarely handed him the keys for extended minutes. Since then, Aaron has bounced from team to team: Indiana, Washington, Phoenix, Atlanta, and now Houston, often landing in situations where he was expected to be a steady second-unit guard, not a starter. His career averages 6.5 points, 1.7 assists, and 39% shooting from deep paint the picture of a solid backup. Good enough to trust, not good enough to feature. But now, circumstances may force him into 30 minutes per night on a contender. For the first time in his career, Aaron Holiday has a chance to matter in the biggest way possible. What he brings and doesn't. Aaron Holiday is not Fred VanVleet. He will not suddenly become a 20-point scorer or a high-level pick-and-roll maestro. But there are things he does well. Three-point shooting nearly 39% for his career. Holiday can space the floor, especially in catch-and-shoot scenarios. With KD, Sengun, and Jalen Green demanding attention, he could feast on open looks. Low mistake ball handling. While he's not an elite playmaker, he rarely turns the ball over. That matters when you're simply trying to get into sets. Defensive effort at 6'0", is undersized, but he fights. He's not a liability if placed in the right scheme. Where the cracks appear. Playmaking vision. Holiday has never averaged more than 3.4 assists per game. Expecting him to orchestrate Houston's entire offense would be a mistake. Durability at heavy minutes. He's never logged more than 23 minutes per game for a full season. Jumping to starter-level minutes could test his endurance. In other words, Holiday can hold the fort, but only if the Rockets adjust around him. How Udoka will adjust. Ime Udoka has already proven himself as a coach who thrives in difficult situations. His time in Boston showed he could rewire a team's identity around defense and unselfishness. Now, he faces his trickiest challenge yet. Here's how he might approach it. 1. Amen Thompson to point guard. At 6'7", Thompson has the size and athleticism to overwhelm smaller guards. His vision is elite, he just needs to cut down turnovers. Expect Udoka to put the ball in his hands far more often, letting him initiate from the top while Holiday functions as a safety valve. 2. Alpen Sengun as the hub. Much like Nikola Jokic in Denver, Sengun can run offense from the elbow. Holiday's ability to space the floor means Udoka can surround Sengun with shooters and cutters, using Holiday less as a creator and more as a connector. 3. More Kevin Durant isolations. KD didn't come to Houston to play second fiddle, but the Van Vliet injury guarantees he'll carry even more shot creation duties. Expect Houston to lean on Durant heavily, especially in crunch time. 4. 2 guard lineups. Look for combinations of Holiday and Green or Holiday and Shepherd to preserve spacing and avoid overloading Thompson. The mix will depend on matchup and foul trouble. Historical parallels. This isn't the first time a contender has been forced to rely on an unheralded guard. 2015 Warriors, Sean Livingston. When injuries hit, Livingston stepped in and gave Golden State steady minutes despite being a career journeyman. 2004 Pistons, Mike James, Lindsey Hunter. They weren't stars, but they provided just enough stability behind Chauncey Billups. 2020 Heat, Goran Dragic injury. Rookie Kendrick Nunn was thrust into bigger minutes than expected. In all cases, the teams that survived weren't relying on those guards to be stars, they just needed them to be competent. Houston hopes Holiday can be their version of Livingston, solid, unshaken, and capable of keeping the machine running. The psychological X factor. More than schemes and stats, the biggest question is mental. Can Aaron Holiday embrace this moment? He's never been the guy. He's rarely even been the sixth man. But now, teammates will look to him. Defenses will target him. The national spotlight, already glaring thanks to KD, will suddenly include him. For a player who's built a career on staying in the background, this is the ultimate test. And for Houston's stars, Durant, Sengun, Thompson, there's also a leadership test. Do they rally around Holiday, or do frustrations bubble when the offense stalls? Championship teams are defined not by how their stars perform, but by how their weakest link responds under pressure. The 15th of December, the lifeline. Everything points to the 15th of December. That's the day Houston regains flexibility. Potential trade targets: Malcolm Brogdon, Portland steady veteran, playoff tested. Terry Rozier, Charlotte scorer with playmaking chops. Monte Morris, Detroit low mistake floor general. Free agent options: Russell Westbrook polarizing, but could provide energy and shot creation. John Wall Houston reunion? Unlikely, but technically possible. G League call-ups: hidden gems who could fill a backup role. The front office will be watching closely. If the Rockets tread water with Holiday, they'll likely pounce in December. If they sink, bigger moves could be on the table, including sacrificing some of their young depth. The Houston Rockets season will not be defined by Kevin Durant scoring, or Alpen Sengun's passing, or even Amen Thompson's development, at least not in the short term. Instead, it may hinge on a player who has spent his career in the shadows. Aaron Holiday, the unheralded guard, the overlooked brother, the perpetual backup, suddenly has the ball in his hands. Sometimes, NBA seasons turn on stars. Sometimes, they turn on luck. And sometimes, they turn on the ability of a forgotten role player to rise when no one expects it. For Houston, the first 2 months of the season will be exactly that, a referendum on whether Aaron Holiday can rise to the moment. And if he can, the Rockets' championship dreams may still burn bright.